Story 1. On my way to work, I realized I needed to get some gas, so I went to my usual Chevron nearby. It was moderately busy this morning for whatever reason. This Chevron has 3 rows of double pumps, and each pump is double-sided. I ended up making a turn and reversing into one row since most of the others were full with cars already. The row I reversed into had both the front and back pumps empty, so of course, I just took the front pump. This made it easier to leave and allowed someone from the other side to fill up at the rear pump if another customer came. As I was getting into position, I braked and came to a full stop. I was literally a split second away from putting my car into park when I was jolted forward. I immediately realized someone had rear-ended me. This was not a 30 miles per hour rear end or anything, but also not like 2 miles per hour. I was perfectly fine, so I parked and got out to see what had just happened. I was met by a woman named Karen, who was roughly 250 pounds and 5'2". And she didn't waste a breath screaming at me, claiming I backed into her vehicle. I was totally caught off guard and stunned for a moment or two. My car, a Lexus SUV, had a dented bumper, and her car had a bumper that had completely fallen off her early 2000s Kia. I asked to trade insurance information, and she just screamed nonsense about taking me to court and such. She actually called the cops when I told her she caused the accident and I was at a full stop. It was wild. The manager of the gas station eventually came out to see the commotion and asked us both to just leave. But Karen wouldn't give me her insurance information and started demanding money for repairs to her car. I knew the cops would never show up for this, and I was about to just give up on insurance and whatnot when, lucky for me, a random cop car pulled in. We waved him over, and each of us explained our side. He was smart enough to ask the gas station manager if there was security footage. No clue why I didn't think of that, but of course, there was. The security camera was not the best quality, but it was good enough to confirm I was at a full stop with brake lights on when Karen rammed into me at probably 10 to 12 miles per hour while she was on her phone. The cop decided not to issue a ticket, but forced her and me to trade insurance information and wrote up a report for me. I will be getting a copy of the security camera footage. I recorded it on my phone as a backup shortly and will hand it off to my insurance to deal with. By the end, she was just completely silent, no longer a ranting and raving lunatic. If only she could have been a normal person from the start, this wouldn't have been a big deal. I'm pretty sure this will be a slam dunk for my insurance to collect and fix my car, and Karen will be 100% at fault. Story 2. After just buying my first home, I had to redo the entire kitchen due to water damage. I was getting new appliances, so I put my old oven on Craigslist for $20. Karen came in her truck with some clueless dude driving. She talked me down to $10, and I was happy to be rid of it. The guy backed the truck up toward the house and just kept going, running into the frame of the garage. The wood was dented, but I was really mad because the framing was separated with a big gap and shifted backwards. After all the unexpected nonsense with the kitchen, I was not happy about further damage to the house. Karen was minimally apologetic and told me to just put some caulk on it. I'm not great in confrontation, so I tried to negotiate any acceptable rectification, finally coming down to asking for $50 for damages, but she refused. I was tempted to tell her to get lost, but at this point, I just wanted the oven gone, so I took her $10. My partner at the time came out after they left, heard the story, and gave me an earful about auto insurance and how we needed to get her back to the house. It was then that we saw that one of the oven racks didn't make it onto the truck. How clueless might this pair be? I called them, and they turned right around to pick it up. We got the plates and told them we were calling the cops for the proper documentation, and they split. When the cops got there, they were able to pull her registration and insurance up, so they called her and told her to come back. She refused and also stated she was the one driving, guessing this guy had a suspended license. Eventually, they told her it would be a hit and run unless they both came back, and she changed her tune. I ended up on the phone with her, and she pleaded that I just drop it and she would send her brother over to put some caulk on the house. Not acceptable, obviously. When she didn't show up, I got all the documentation and later filed a claim. Insurance eventually paid $800. Not sure what financial and legal ramifications were for her, but I bet she wished she had just given me $60 and walked away, or maybe made do with only 2 racks in her oven. Story 3. Okay, so just a little bit of info before I get into the story. I am a 22-year-old man who works construction, runs a few crews, And as a foreman, because I've been working in this field since I started working summers when I was 14, that's legal in my state. With this being said, I have a lot of experience and get paid really well. For my job, I need a truck that can pull a lot of trailers and also get into a lot of sketchy job sites, especially in the winter. So I drive a new lifted pickup truck. Anyway, let's get into it. About 4 months ago, I got off work one day and just really didn't feel like making dinner. So I decided to go get myself a Big Mac at McDonald's. Well, after I got my order, I was going to pull out into the parking lot to drive home, and I was looking hard over to my left to see how busy the road was before I got over there. I wasn't paying great attention to what was happening in front of me, and as I was creeping forward, someone in front of me was stopped and not paying attention either. I ended up barely hitting his mirror and scraping his door with my front end. I immediately reversed and hopped out. I made sure the guy was okay and apologized, knowing it was my fault. I asked him if he wanted to call the cops. Let's call him Brent. Brent said, "Nah, bro, we are all good. If you just get me your insurance info, I think we can get this taken care of." I was fine with that, as there was no damage done to my truck, and it's not required to call the cops for an accident if it occurs in a private parking lot. This is relevant later. We exchanged info, and he seemed pretty cool, so I told him to go get the damage bid, and I would just pay in cash so my insurance rates wouldn't go up, as long as he was okay with it. He said that was fine, and we both just left. I felt like a moron, but all in all, Brent seemed like a cool dude, and I just hoped we could get it sorted out smoothly. About a month passed by, and I hadn't heard anything from Brent or the shop I told him to go to. Honestly, I wasn't too stressed about this because if he decided not to get it done, that was on him. Well, he called me up one day at about noon, saying he couldn't remember my name, and he wanted to tell the guys at the shop who sent him there because it seemed like we knew each other. I told him my name, and the guys at the shop gave him a deal. Pretty sure they say this to everyone. He sent me the bid for damages, and it came out to $2,403. This was more than I imagined, but I said to get it done, and I'd take care of the bill afterward. That was that. He hung up and said it was cool, and I went on with my day as usual. Another month went by, and I didn't hear anything until Brent called me up while I was at work again. He said, "Hey, brother, I talked to the shop, and they said they can't get me in for another 2 weeks or so, and they may end up charging me more if they find more damage." I said, "Okay, sounds good. Just let me know, man. I hope it goes smoothly for you, and I'm sorry for the inconvenience." He seemed to take it well, and I was really trying to just be a good person. He responded with, "Well, after talking to my wife, I'm okay if you just want to write a check for $2,500, and we can call it even." This seemed odd to me because why wouldn't someone want their vehicle repairs all paid for? I said, "Okay, ma'am, let's set a time and place to meet, and I'll get you paid." He liked the idea and ended the call by telling me he would let me know. Yet another month passed by, and I heard nothing again. At this point, I was getting fed up and just wanted this situation to stop being over my head. He hit me up at 11 p.m. one night and asked if we could meet in town. I found this kind of disrespectful because I was nearly asleep and had to be at work at 5 a.m. the next day. Either way, I said that was fine and took my $2,500 cash and wrote up a quick contract saying this payment would be accepted as payment in full for the damages, and by accepting it, it would release me from any and all liability. This was a pretty fair contract, I believe, as it was the deal we had already made over the phone, just in writing. I got to the place we suggested as a meet-up spot, gave him the cash, and he signed the contract without hardly even reading it. He didn't want the copy. This was a red flag to me, but I just assumed he really didn't care about it all that much. So I just sent him a photo of the contract and went back home for some beauty sleep. As you can guess by now, another month went by with me just living life carefree and not a worry in the world about this silly car accident. Well, I went to check my mail, and I had a notice from this guy's lawyer that he was suing me for not paying after wrecking his car. This made me mad, but I also knew I had plenty of text messages and a contract on my side. I immediately called Brent, and he blocked my number. Luckily enough, my girlfriend worked for a lawyer, so I updated him, and he said he'd love to help. He let me know I saved myself by writing that contract, as any contract worth over $500 is to be held up in any level court in my state. I immediately got to work on my revenge. I remembered on the side of this guy's car he had a business logo, and I took pictures of the damage. So I hopped online and went to the Better Business Bureau to look up who owned this company, thinking that surely he couldn't own the business because he was such an idiot. I was wrong. This guy owned the company, and I could see that he had about 12 one-star reviews, all in dispute because of his shady business practices, telling people it would cost one thing and then charging them 4 times what he said it would. Sound familiar? Remember when he said the shop might charge more than the original $2,403? That's right, he was suing me for $10,000, 4 times what the shop told him it would cost. Unbelievable, he was trying his same sneaky nonsense on me. My lawyer took note of this, and we showed up to court ready for war. This guy was sleazy. As we got there and all set up, he said, "You ready to give me more of Daddy's money?" With a smirk, I guess, just because I'm young and drive a nice truck and could afford $2,500. His lawyer got up and started trying to say nonsense from me hitting and running, and Brent barely got a picture of my license plate, so I tried bullying him into taking a deal for only $2,500 when the damage was clearly more than that. There were obvious holes in his story, and he really didn't have much to say. Just imagine the smile on my face as my lawyer laid out the printouts of our text messages and the physical copy of the contract, which was signed by Brent. His lawyer was ghostly white and looked sick. After laying out all of the evidence, my lawyer pulled out a little hidden gem, the printouts of all the complaints we found on the Better Business Bureau and how he was doing the same thing to me. That was the final nail in the coffin, as the judge said he had seen enough. He asked Brent for any final statements, and Brent said, "I don't even have the $2,500 anymore. Can I just get that, then, and we will be okay?" Literally admitting to the judge that he had received my money and his story was just a load of nonsense. I thought his lawyer was going to strangle him. It was beautiful. The judge ended up ruling in my favor and demanded that he pay my legal fees as well as damages and lost wages because I had to miss work to be in court. The absolute sweetest part was that this particular day my crew was on a very high-wage job, and I was technically the one getting paid before I paid them out as subcontractors. This means I was to be paid $475 per hour, and this whole ordeal took about 5 hours. He ended up having to pay me almost $5,000. I don't think I've ever been so happy in my life. Story 4. Maybe not truly malicious, but you all probably need something wholesome. When I was a teenager, I worked at a certain fast food restaurant known for customer service. I used to work at the drive-thru. I was the voice in the box while also preparing drinks for the window. We'd have people come through with all kinds of requests and grievances. One day, I was taking a woman's order, and she added a bottle of water. The last time I ordered a bottle of water, it was warm, so please make sure you give me one that is cold this time. We keep the bottles in a fridge, but they get stocked from room temperature, so I guess she got one that was recently stocked the last time. The lady was really upset about this and reminded me a few more times to make sure it's cold. Being a teen, I was mildly amused with myself when I decided to most certainly make sure her water was cold. I grabbed one of our extra-large cups, filled it with ice, and stuffed the water bottle right in the middle. My coworker at the window gave me a weird look, but I just told her to go along with it. The lady came to the window, and my coworker handed her the cup/ice/bottle contraption. I was feeling slightly smug until the lady started raving about how this is customer service and how happy she was to know it would most certainly be cold, etc. She even ended up submitting feedback to the store about how great it was. At the end of the day, I was happy she got her cold water, even if it was in the most ridiculous way.